Hey, it's Sean from Tested. Happy New Year. Today, we're gonna take a look at the newest Dremel 3D printer. This is the 3D45 and is the third outing in the 3D printing world for Dremel. We started with their original 3D20 way back in the day, and it was a nice little printer that we did the whole Ghostbusters Ghost Trap on. It worked well for us, and this is a major upgrade. It's built on the 3D40 base package with a lot of upgrades that we'll get into as we go along. It will print a lot of different materials. It is a single print head, not a dual material or dual print head, but you can print a lot of different types of material on it. The retail on this is $17.99, but I've seen it as low as around $1,400 on places like Amazon or other online outlets, so you can check it out. The build volume is pretty generous at 10 by 6 by 6.75, and it is fully enclosed, as you can see. The lids do open up easily, which is nice. Keeps stray hands and kids out of that if it's in like an educational environment or in public. And the print bed is glass and fully removable, so it just clips in. You can pop it out to remove prints and stuff like that, and it's fully heated, which is really nice and allows you to print a lot more materials than you normally could. It has a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it can go down to about a 0.05 millimeter layer height. I'd say the standard layer height is probably around 0.2, which is kind of the go-to normal or fast print height, and then probably your normal printing for fine stuff will be 0.1, and we'll talk about the prints a little bit later. It uses a 1.75 millimeter filament. It runs about $25 to $35 for a half kilogram roll, so it's a bit pricier than your standard filaments. Most of the stuff that I buy the pro levels, which are a kilogram for around $42. So it's a little pricey, and it is keyed to only fit in the Dremel. So it has this little tiny spool hole. So using standard size rolls is not possible out of the package. It does have an RFID chip in it, so it will read the filament and tell you what it is, but you have the option to override that and type in whatever you want. The nozzle will go up to 280 degrees Celsius, allowing you to do things like PETG and other engineering materials, and we'll talk about those a little bit as well. And the bed will go up to 100 degrees Celsius, so you can do our favorite ABS. And since it's enclosed, it does it pretty well because it keeps all the heat in. Now there's a disclaimer on that, which we will also talk about as we go along. It will actually print most materials out there. You are restricted by what they offer though. Their standard material that they sent me for this is Eco ABS, which is, that's not what it sounds like. It's not ABS. It is actually a PLA mix. I would compare it to some of the tough PLA that is out there. And so it's a little more bendable and flexible than your typical PLA. It printed just fine for me. I printed most of the things here with it, and it printed fine, but it is not true ABS. I found that it sanded and handled more like PLA than ABS does, but it does have a little bit more give and durability than your typical PLA. They also offer regular PLA, nylon, and PETG. So I had a roll of nylon that I printed some stuff with. They don't actually offer true ABS, which is kind of frustrating. But I did successfully print it, and I had a few workarounds, so we'll get to that as well. All right, so let's talk about some of the other features on the 3D45. It has a semi-auto leveling print bed. So in the print head here, there is a little servo lever that will pop down and engage with the print bed and do that a few points so that it will self-level itself. It also has some manual adjustment knobs for fine-tuning that. Now I had a problem right out of the box where my printer would not, it wasn't auto leveling properly. It was leveling too far away from the bed, which meant that the prints weren't adhering like they should, and I was having trouble with the prints coming off. Now there is adjustments for that, and that kind of, we should talk a little bit about the availability of adjustments on this. It has a really good in-depth system menu on the printer that allows you to have a lot of control over a lot of features. You can change, print temperatures, print bed, you can change the materials as we talked about, and you can even tweak these settings for the print bed. So I had to go in and manually adjust the print bed gap a little bit to compensate for that. Once I did that, it leveled fine and I didn't have any problems going forward, but it's just something to point out. It has a 4.5-inch color touchscreen, which is a nice feature, and I like it. It will, on some models, it will actually show you a rendering of the model itself. I believe that has to come from the online portion of the slicer to get the full image of the preview model. And it has a carbon filter in the back here, and a vent hookup for exhausting. So here in the back, you can see a carbon filter that you can remove and replace. This is a nice touch because if you are going to print something stinky like ABS, it really does help. And it even has the option to hook up an external vent hose, and it comes with the STL for printing that hookup on the card, which I thought was nice as well. I turned in some ABS with this, and I did find I got little to no smell out of the printer at all, so the carbon filter was doing its job. A downside of that is it does make this printer a little noisier than some of my others because it's adding another pretty big fan, and you do notice it while it's running. Let's talk about the software a little bit. There's a few different options. For desktop options, they have a modified version of the Cura print software, which is put up by Ultimaker. It's open source, and they have modified it to fit and use with the 3D45. This is a great move considering that their first batch of software was really badly done. And this has both options for beginners, very simple, high quality, low quality, medium quality, and support setting or infill settings that you can modify. You can pick if you want to use support. And then you can go to the custom or advanced settings and change just about anything you want, which gives you tons of control over your model. So good to see that they did this. So it's also nice that they have the option of the web interface partnered with 3D Printer OS. It's a really nice setup where you can upload your files, you can group them into different projects and organize them that way. It allows you to repair, layout, and slice everything online. And you can monitor the camera as well. So you can lay out stuff, you can slice it as well, and you can start with the simple setup, which has all of the approved Dremel materials in it, or you can go to the advanced or even expert, which lets you get into the actual G code. So about any option that you would want. It will send it to the printer via Wi-Fi, and it will create a print queue as well, so that when one finishes and you remove it, it can start the next one. It'll let you monitor the print camera from online, and you can even do time lapses of your print as you go. So let's talk about the overall experience about prints and using the printer itself. I found that the printer had a lot of really nice features on it, coming from the Cura, which was their custom build, let you have a lot of control over it. There's a lot of controls right on the printer itself as far as like adjusting bed temperature, print temperature, and other fine-tuning features, which I really appreciated. I like the full color screen, and the touchscreen worked well. As far as hooking up to, to send your prints, you have the USB stick, which you can just, do off your computer, bring over to the printer. It does have Wi-Fi option as well, but only if you are using the online 3D Printing OS software. You do not have the Wi-Fi option from Cura. The other odd thing is it does have a USB port, but you cannot currently use it with Cura. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but there's no direct hardwire hookup option at this point. That may be implemented at a later date. So some of the prints here, this is the mechanic that comes with it on the card. This is at the standard print values, so it's really fast. It's printed in maybe like 4 or 5 hours. And this is like super fast, it's draft mode. It's kind of sloppy. And it kind of shows a lot of the details kind of mushy. There's a lot of ringing, which is when you get vibrations in the gantry and et cetera that resolve themselves in the print itself as little waves. And I printed this in the black Eco ABS, but I misted it with a little bit of primer just so you could see the details better on camera. And it's an okay, not great print. But once again, this was at the super fast draft modes. During printing, I did notice that I think that the printer is louder than a lot of my other ones because I don't know particularly why, but I think part of the problem with the ringing that I was seeing was that it has a really big bulky print head. It's got, you know, the stepper motor right on it, and then in addition it added the self-leveling mechanism, which is another servo that is in the front there, and that just adds more weight, and the more weight you add, the more likely you are to get ringing effects and stuff like that. You also have there's a run out sensor in the head as well, which will tell you when filament has run out of the spool. And you know that's another board. It's adding a little bit more weight. So overall, that may be a cause of ringing and a little bit of extra print noise. I did this awesome pumpkin guy as well, pumpkin creature, and this I did at the 0.1 settings, and I was overall pretty happy with how this turned out. Once again, this was printed in the Eco ABS at 0.1, and I misted it with some primer so that you could see the details better. If you look at the back here, I think this resolved pretty nicely. A lot of the details, like on the hands and the pumpkins and stuff like that, look nice. You will notice that there is some problems with, we got some overhang problems here in the belly area, but that, to be honest, unsupported at that angle, that is not to be unexpected. And I did a comparison version on the Ultimaker, also at 0.1, and I think that they compare relatively well. The Ultimaker is a little bit cleaner, but it still had the same overhang problems in the belly area as the Dremel did. And they took about the same amount of time to print. So at 0.1, I'm relatively happy with this. It could be a little bit better, but it's pretty, like, I'd be pretty happy with it. I also, in addition to printing in the Eco ABS, which was the bulk of the printing I did some nylon printing as well. This was my most successful and favorite one. This is a little carabiner. Obviously you wouldn't go rock climbing with it, but it printed really nicely. It's pretty clean. There wasn't very much stringing or boogers on it, and it's really strong, and I was pretty happy with how the nylon turned out, which was a nice surprise. Finally, with an enclosed printer with a heated print bed, why would you not want to print ABS? They even put a carbon filter in it. None of these other ones smell at all, so like, you want to print ABS on this. So I came up with some solutions for that. I got out a roll of my ABS and I printed my time-traveling police box. It turned out great. This prints as flat panels that you slot together, and I was really, really happy with how this printed ABS. Now to do that, I had to come up with a few solutions. One of which is you have to dial in your own material settings, which is, they make it totally easy. You go into the materials submenu, you type in how hot you want it to print at, how hot you want the print bed. You can even do extrusion rates, and I just changed the print bed temperature and the nozzle temperature, and it printed great. I used my typical adhesion methods. For the PLA and stuff, I used the glue stick, but for this I used my my kind of slurry mix of acetone and ABS, and it stuck fine to the glass. So, solutions for printing other filaments. This is the onboard spool storage, which is nice. And as we talked about, it has the spindle that is sized for these small diameter Dremel ones. And a regular roll of filament won't even fit in here. So what I did is I printed a external spool holder that slides onto the existing one, and then you can hang whatever you want on it, and you can feed it through one of the mounting holds for the cover. That's what I did with my roll of ABS. It printed fine. I didn't have any problems with it, and you can try it out if you like as well. So let's talk about likes and dislikes to kind of wrap the printer all up. It has great documentation. It actually comes with a real legit manual, which was a nice touch, and I always like and appreciate. It also comes with a Quickstart Manual, which is pretty typical, but this was a little bit of a bonus. It also has really, really good documentation online. I was really impressed with their FAQ and problem-solving questions. Anything that I ran into, other than that initial bed leveling issue, I was able to find on the FAQ and the online help without any problem. So thumbs up on that as well. Fully enclosed, awesome. You don't see that as much, and that was a really nice touch, both for safety and for printing more exotic filaments. The carbon filter on the back is also a nice touch. Yes, it makes it a little noisier, but it really worked. I didn't smell any ABS fumes at all, and if you need to, you can vent it out the window. The heated print bed with the removable glass is obviously really nice, and it's a pretty generous size. I really enjoyed and liked having the run-out detection, which did work. I didn't actively have it happen, but I cut some filament short and I tried it myself. It triggered just like it should. It paused, it allowed me to load a new one in and continue the print without any problem. So also awesome. The camera is great. I like having the camera in there. It allowed me to keep an eye on prints. It allowed me to do time lapses using the online software, which is also nice. I would like to see down the road the addition of like a phone app where you can like keep an eye on it via your phone, or maybe start and stop prints, etc. The multiple interface and slicer options was great. I liked having the full-blown Cura, which gave you lots of options for controlling your prints. I applaud them for a drastic upgrade from their original software, which wouldn't even let you do support. So good job on that. And having the option of the online printer, 3D printer OS, was also really, really nice. I think especially in an academic environment, which I kind of picture them gearing this towards, it'll let you kind of like control your farm of printers. The fact that it will print in most materials, and even though they limit those materials, there are workarounds that will allow you to print other ones, although they are not fully supported, it can be done. And the heated print bed and the enclosed space and the nozzle that goes hot enough all help with that. And I like the fact that there was a lot more tweaking options on this than I would expect for a big name printer. Usually you see that stuff in the quote unquote smaller companies, and I find like the ones that are just like they're selling it as it just works, they simplify things too much sometimes. So it's nice to see that they had both options for beginner intro kind of stuff, and then like you really get into the nitty gritty stuff both on the printer and in the software. So I enjoyed that as well. Which leads us to the no-like. There are a few things, and we'll talk about that now. It is noisier than my other printers, partly from the exhaust fan, partly just because I think of the heavier, bigger gantry. It is definitely noisier than any other printer I have. Not horrendous, but you definitely notice it more than some of my others. The auto leveling is okay. I would like to see just the plain old-fashioned option of using a piece of paper and manually turning the things, because frankly, I can do that faster and easier most of the time than most auto leveling procedures. And if I do that right, I generally don't have to level it again for a really long time. So while I appreciate having the auto leveling feature in there, it does add more weight to the print head. And I would like, in addition, to see fully manual version as well, if you just want to do it that way. The proprietary spools are kind of a bummer. I understand why they do it. Having the RFID chips in this, which automatically identify the filament, is a really nice touch. But I really would like to see the ability to just put a regular old spool in there. I've uploaded my adapter to Thingiverse. We'll put a link in there, so if you have one of these or are getting one, you can do that. And it's a shame because this can print just about anything, so I wish they would just let you do that. And in addition to the proprietary spools, the fact that they are significantly more expensive than a standard roll of filament is also kind of disappointing. I feel that the prints could be a little bit better. Once I did the 0.1 settings, they were not bad at all. The 0.2 were kind of disappointing, but you might be able to tweak that a little bit more by messing with the speed settings and retraction settings and stuff like that. But overall, it did a decent job. For the price, I would like to see you do just a little bit better. And finally, my number one complaint is that they made things so user-friendly and gave you so much access to features that you normally don't get access to that I'm disappointed with the jam removal procedure. I don't care what printer you get, how much that printer costs, you are going to get a jam with 3D printing. I guarantee it. They do provide you with this little jam removal tool, which the idea is if you get a jam, you cut off the filament and you jam this down through the top, supposedly removing the jam. That worked once for me. I had maybe 4 jams altogether. It worked one time for me. The other times it did not. I ended up having to take the print head apart to remove the jam. Underneath the shroud on that, it is a pretty standard setup for the extruder where the stepper motor is mounted behind a spring-loaded lever with a bearing on it that the filament goes through. Once you get the cover off, removing the jam was not very hard, but it does not cover doing that procedure anywhere in the documentation, either in the manual or online or the FAQ or anything like that. And for your average user, they're not going to delve into that. So I would imagine that Dremel is going to get quite a few questions and support help inquiries concerning that. So I would like to have seen a better solution for that. So what's the final verdict on the Dremel 3D 45? Should you get it? At the lowest price that I've seen, around $1,400, it is very, very tempting. It is a nice printer. There's a lot of stuff that I like about it. The print quality is decent and it will do multiple materials. The options of having multiple ways to slice and get things to the printer is also nice. And it's from an established, well-known tool company, so that is nice. And the documentation and support that goes with it has been above and beyond, I think. So I think that it is definitely an option that you should look at if you are looking to get a really nice, print it and forget it kind of printer. It seems that Dremel is gearing this a lot towards education, and I think that this is an excellent choice for education and places that are going to need kind of like a fleet of printers because it's self-contained, it's enclosed to keep like prying hands out of it. It has the online option, and for the most part, it just kind of it works. So I think with them promoting it towards that type of thing, I think that is a really good choice for that type of setup. So the Dremel 3D 45 available online, lots of different places. The best price I've seen is $1,400. The retail is $17.99. But check it out, and we'll see you next time on Tested.